Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Evolve Through God. My name is Angela Goodman, and I am your host today for this amazing podcast. I'm really excited for the guest that we have today. He is a really good friend of mine, very close friend of mine, he and his wife both. And I met him through the Arate Syndicate. Originally, we talked for many years before we met in person. And he is one of the most humble, calm, and graceful men I've ever met. So welcome, David Carbajal, to the show.
Angela, thank you so much for having me. Man, your voice is made for podcasts and radio.
Thank you.
But I know it's been a while. I've been saying I'll be on the show, and it's
Mhm.
taken a few months to actually get something on the calendar. So I'm very excited to be here, share my testimony and my God journey with everybody. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so, it's so awesome because the first time we actually met in person was an event that Matt and I hosted called Evolve 2.0, and we did a whole spiritual journey at that event, and it was amazing. And so having talked to you on the phone prior to that, and then being with you for 4 days during that time, and then later getting to know you and Kayla so much better, and having spent time at your Airbnb, which is amazing, out in the desert in the Yucca Valley. Um, I don't know your God story. We haven't talked about your God story. So I'm really excited today to learn more about that. And I would say I usually start all of my guests with, when did you first come to know God? So I'm just going to say that and
Okay.
go, it's your turn.
Okay. No, and it's an interesting story, and I hope that somebody listening, could relate to them. But it's a journey, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Um, Nothing, you know, hugely traumatic. I was born and raised. We'll start from the beginning. I was
Yes.
born and raised a cradle Catholic, we'll call it. Um, my nana, which was my grandma, and in Spanish, and I'm fluent in Spanish, which a lot of people don't know.
And
Um,
where is your family originally from?
they are from Guadalajara in
Okay.
Mexico.
Okay.
So my grandparents migrated legally from
Hmm.
there.
Hmm.
Um, and my Nana and Tata had 7 kids,
Wow.
and my mom was the youngest.
Okay.
And my mom and dad had me. My mom was 17 and my dad was 19.
Oh, wow. They were
So
young.
I have been able to just watch really what a true marriage is, and them standing by each other's side and
Mhm.
allowing people to grow
That's beautiful.
in their own time. Um, they we lived in a small 2-bedroom house with my grandparents when we were younger, and it was always just drilled into my mom, and thank God. First of all, it's funny, on Mother's Day I always thank my mom for keeping me because she was 17 when she had me.
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
so that alone is a miracle in itself, I believe, and so
Hmm.
maybe that's what brings me so much joy and why I'm very positive.
Yeah.
Um, but I did grow up in Catholic school,
All
all
right, so
through.
let's go back to
Yep.
like the real bit. So when do you remember first? Like, do you remember going to mass with your parents? Was that a thing? I mean, again, your parents were young.
Hmm.
So by the time you were three, right, they were in their early 20s. So what does that
Yep.
look like for you? What do you remember of that time?
So my grandparents were the biggest influence on my
Okay.
religion
Okay.
growing up. I remember going to bed before, with my nana
Hmm.
and praying every night.
Okay. Very cool.
She taught me how to pray. Um, yeah. So
I
that's
love
that's
that.
where it started.
I love that.
And then went to school, and religion really, and it may have not been my timing, but
Hmm.
religion was very just another subject, right?
Okay. Yeah.
It was like just something you do. I was just born and went through, I
Just
don't want to
part of the
say through the
process.
motions, but it was
Yeah.
just part of,
Part of the
what my
process.
identity became. Right.
So you
Yep.
didn't have at that time, it wasn't like you really understood what God was. It was just kind of one of those things where you just did it and checked the
Uh,
boxes and didn't have an
yeah, I
understanding.
do. I did know who and what God was, but I didn't like feel it
Okay.
as much as I do now.
Hmm.
Like I didn't feel his presence like I
Mm-hmm.
do now.
Mm-hmm.
And so went through elementary school. And then I also went to a Catholic high school. So it was very prevalent. And I truly believe it did set a very solid foundation for me,
Mm-hmm.
as far as, rooted values. And it just, again, in high school, it was another subject and
Mm-hmm.
that I had to get through. And I would have called myself religious and I did believe in God, but I had never experienced, and we'll get there, but what I feel now and how I feel God.
Yeah. So when you were talk to us a little bit, because not every listener is going to know what it's like to go to Catholic high school. So what does that look like different from maybe a traditional regular school that doesn't incorporate any kind of faith into it?
So we had religious studies courses. So we
Mm.
would say, some can call it theology. We had courses like religions of the world, just ingrained into our normal courses that we needed to take. And then once a week, we would have a school-wide mass.
Okay.
Um, I played both baseball and football. And so before, every game, we would go to chapel.
Mm-hmm.
It was just normal, right?
Yeah.
Like it just
Yeah.
became, I don't want to say routine, but it was part of our,
Yeah.
daily or weekly or whatever you want to call it routine.
Yeah. So for those of us who went to public school, totally foreign for us. That whole
Yep.
part of the process. Church and state very much removed for me in my school life. So,
Hmm.
okay, all right. So go ahead. So you go to Catholic school and then
And then I went to college, and from a small, maybe I'd say 600 student total, high school, all boys Catholic high school. I was starting quarterback. I was captain of the baseball and football team. So we'll say, I had a lot of friends and kind of popular guy. Um, I went to Arizona State, which
okay.
was what, thousands and 60,000 or something
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
Home of the Sun Devils.
Home of the Sun Devils. And
That's
my
right.
intent, there were two things. One, I went there to advance in construction management because they were at the time the number two school in the nation for construction engineering and project management, which
Mm-hmm.
was one reason. And the other reason was to play baseball. And my plan was to walk on
Okay.
because I was very good. And
And what position did you play?
I played third base and
Okay.
pitcher.
Okay. You're
And
short for third base.
yeah, no, I know.
Yeah. You're
I'm
shorty
good
for
though.
third
Still
base.
good.
Yeah.
Um, so the objective or the plan was to walk on, and I never even made it to the practice because before school actually started, I rushed and I joined a fraternity,
Oh, okay.
which again, I never regretted it. That was fun in itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, wild times,
So you just
you know.
never went to tryouts. You never went to see whether or not you would make it because you decided to go the fun route.
It was just more fun that way,
Okay.
right?
All
I wanted
right.
to go try out and try to see if I could make it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so did that. It graduated in 4 years and started working right after graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Still played college when I got home
Mm-hmm.
and kind of stuck around the same group of guys that were in college that were over here. And so
So
Thursday night.
when you
Mhm.
were in college, did you have any kind of practices as far as faith was concerned? Did you do any? I mean,
Um,
You go from a Catholic
mhm.
high school, right, where it's a part of your daily practice, and then you go to college. Arizona State is not a religious school by any stretch of the imagination. So, did you get into some of the groups there that were in faith? Did you do much with your faith during the time in college, or did you pretty much just focus on college?
No, I focused on college
Okay. All
for
right.
sure.
Yeah.
And once in a while I would go to church.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or I try to go through stints of it, but really, if I'm honest, God kind of took a back seat.
Yeah. And so when you look back now at those years in your life, do you see him anywhere?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no way he wasn't there
Yeah.
protecting me in some of the nights I don't remember what happened.
Right.
Um, There is no way. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
I probably don't even know half the stuff he did for me.
Yeah.
So
That'll be a fun
um,
ponderance for you at some point in time. Sit back
it
and look at
will.
those
That is
crazy
a good one.
times. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, he was definitely there. And all along this in this story, also in kind of backtracking, in high school is when I met Kayla, who is now my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So we dated junior to senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And then she was wise enough to break it off because I was going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were high school sweethearts. Um,
Oh, I love
and I
that.
kept in touch, every summer I'd
Mm-hmm.
make sure to do something, whatever it was, just at least to show face. And
Mm-hmm.
my nana was huge on almost every time I spoke to her. She's like, have you spoke to Kayla? Like,
Aw.
um, so I think God was using her to bring me back to my wife
To,
after I graduated.
yeah.
Yeah. So I came back from college, still kind of hung with the same crowd. We'd go out Friday night, I'd work all week,
Mm-hmm.
kind of grind it out and work on complex construction projects. I was working for a large general contractor. Um, and it was a lot of work, driving far,
Mm-hmm.
long, long hours. Just felt like kind of a machine I was in, just pumping it out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so then by the time Friday hit, it was like, I needed to find an out or something. And so I'd go out with my friends and pretend I was in college again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at some point, I did end up getting a DUI.
Okay.
Um, and that
God
was
kicked you in the pants. He said, "Okay,
wild.
listen,
Yep.
buddy, you're done. You're done, and you need to learn this lesson."
Yep. And so heartbreaking call to my parents after I got
Mm.
arrested and pretty crazy.
So
Um,
were you just out like drinking and driving? Were you coming home from a
yeah,
party? Is that yeah?
I was coming home from, I think it was an Angel game or
Okay.
something, but we had gone out before to, go to
Yeah,
the game and
pregame.
the whole thing. And that's kind of what woke me up. My dad at that point, and I still have them. I thanked him the other day, but he
Mm-hmm.
would write me letters,
Mm-hmm.
saying how he's just completely prayed to God that really, because I wouldn't call myself like a drunk or like an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
but when I would go out, I would go out
Yeah.
like, and
Yeah.
it'd lead one thing to the next,
Yeah.
um, like I'd never drink during the week, but yeah, so I remember he would write me some letter, and that moment, getting that DUI, getting these kind of plea for stopping from my parents,
Yeah.
um, and something, then at that point I was like, okay, I need to, come to reality or time to grow up,
Mm-hmm.
and honestly, Kayla was the first move I made. We'll
Yeah.
call it.
So you have that happen to you. Did you have to serve any time at all, or
No,
okay? So
no,
that happens to you. You move on with your life, and you then decide, I need a woman. Is that how
yeah,
that works?
I needed a woman to help. Yes,
To help
because
settle you
I
down.
to help settle me down. Yep. Yeah,
I
that's
love it.
exactly what happened.
I love it.
And so yeah, and then so from there, started dating Kayla and
Mm-hmm.
started maturing more,
Mm-hmm.
just by association.
Mm-hmm.
We dated for a couple years,
Mm-hmm.
and then without too much thought, like I knew, like even when we met in high school, like she's always had such a great heart, and
Mm-hmm.
she was always very wise and always very grounded, and
Mm-hmm.
just pure. She always has been. And so thankfully she saw that purity in me,
Yeah.
and asked her to marry me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and at this time I still worked for that general contractor, and concurrently, like on the background, um, my senior year in college, I had somebody come speak to me, and they kind of opened Pandora's box on personal development,
Okay.
and
What did they say?
started with Think and Grow Rich.
Okay.
This
Great book.
gentleman who has a huge land advisor like company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Shared that Think and Grow Rich really just opened his eyes and kind of changed his life.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I jumped into like Audible
Yeah.
and just started listening to anything and everything I could.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a few things working on the background as I'm transitioning out of, the wild college years
So at that
and
time when you meet Kayla, does she have any kind of faith background at that point in time? Is she
mm, she does,
okay?
um, not like prevalent though either.
Right.
Not
Right.
like,
So
but
she
she
didn't
always
have
has. She grew up in both Catholic Christian
okay.
churches.
Okay. But neither one of you at this point in time while you're going through the dating process are having any kind of specific practices of going to mass or visiting the church or doing any of that kind of stuff.
No, but I was always taught though that if I'm gonna really take a serious relationship serious, there are a few things that should be foundational,
Mm-hmm.
right? Things that you're not going to change in somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Things that somebody who does have a background in faith and kind of understands some, different rooted standards.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I knew she believed in God, um, which was a must if I was
Yeah.
going to continue to
Good.
pursue things.
Good.
Um, so yeah, so let's see. Then I was still working very, very hard on these wild projects, and
Mm-hmm.
thankfully, God gave me a nice head because those projects caused me to lose my hair. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that was just the plan. I have a friend that he shared that his grandpa always used to say, God only gave a few people beautiful heads. For everyone else, he just threw hair on them.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, I love that. That's so
Right.
good.
So I'm gonna.
There are a lot
I
of people who should not be bald. That's for sure.
Yep, yep. So thankfully, but it was very stressful, with huge construction projects and you have wild deadlines. I'm doing, big hospital projects, a lot of retail, big Target ground up
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
in Hollywood and very, very challenging areas to build.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was that kind of 5-10 year era of just grinding it out. Um, And then, as I asked Kayla to marry me, we get married. We're
Mm-hmm.
still both working. She starts working a very demanding corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then one day I think I was reading like Strengths Finder, just different. And I'm like, you know what? I had an executive recruit reach out to me, asking me to go interview or go work potentially for a hotel developer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're working for these large general contractors, they're very wise in how they
Mm-hmm.
put the handcuffs on you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
and you have company stock and shares, and if you leave, you'll lose it. And very respectable career, and it's kind of the trajectory. You'll get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but I just went for it and took the interview, and I got the job to work exclusively for a hotel developer at that time, which was, if I look back, that was probably one of the biggest milestones and kind of moves that I made. Um, so I did that,
What was he like?
and
What was he like? Why did you decide to go to work for him?
they were a small company, actually based out of South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
Spartanburg,
Mm-hmm.
um, and he was willing to teach me. I thought I needed almost a mentor
Okay.
at the same rate, coming from just a general contract to an owner,
Mm-hmm.
and an owner, or essentially like an owner rep. Um, I didn't know much of the lingo. I had never worked on hospitality or
And so he was
hospitality
doing
projects.
projects out near LA, and that's why he was looking for somebody
They
local.
were specifically in Santa Monica.
Okay. Okay.
So there were two hotels that were going up concurrently with
Mm-hmm.
the same GC, two complete different brands,
Mm-hmm.
and they were behind before they even started. Like it was just one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
very, very rough projects.
Yeah.
And so I just jumped into it. And for a while, it was hard to transition, and not be overbearing on the general contractor and try to write their solve their wrongs and find their problems.
Right.
Um, but I figured all that out, and so this project was just extremely challenging. It was, and I'm not even kidding. It took 8 years to get approved, and they were just so behind even before they started. And in
Mm-hmm.
working in California in general, but Santa Monica specifically,
Mm-hmm.
they call it the Republic of Santa Monica because
Ah,
they have their own
their own
rules.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thrown, I think God was putting me in these chaotic, crazy situations because that didn't end there. Like we finished the project, we got through it. And then right after that, there was another project in Northern California that was the same general contractor and in a very similar situation,
Mm-hmm.
way behind.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another insane, chaotic project. And man, looking back, I think I was put there to, you know, refine helping people getting out of troubled situations. Um, because that was real experience.
Well, I think I said at the beginning of this call about how calm you are. That was one of the adjectives I used to describe you in the intro. And I think some of that after your wild days was honing you, right?
Hmm.
Honing you for your skill set and your gifts and what you bring to the table. You were put in those positions to help craft that calmness that you have inside and to help really allow that to shine.
No, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And I now looking back and as we continue, it's clear now that that is exactly what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so let's see. After that, I had an easy project, which was very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in Northern California, another hotel. So I ended up doing about 5 or 6 hotels
Okay.
um, with that company. But the entrepreneur in me, or the ambition, or whatever we want to call it, knew that it was time to move on from them. And also, I was also spending a lot of time with my late brother-in-law
Mm-hmm.
at that time,
Mm-hmm.
who they used to call him Seven Figure Sam, and he's a huge, you know,
Yeah.
influencer. I mean, Bedros there's podcasts and episodes and old YouTubes where he's letting him know, like, this is my mentor, Seven Figure Sam. This is how he does. So
Yeah.
he unfortunately passed away. Um, but if I thought listening to Audible opened my eyes to what could be, I mean, he just completely ripped it wide open and
Yeah.
opened the doors. Like, it was just like, wow, this is what people can do.
So so at this point in time, obviously you and Kayla are married, right?
Yeah.
He's your brother-in-law. So what did you do, when you lost him? Because I know a little bit of that story from prior to being on the show, right? So when you lost him, what did you do from a perspective of mentorship? Because I know to some degree he was very big, to your point, right? You learned what you can do. So what did you do for mentorship when he was no longer there?
Um, I leaned into that's actually when I joined Arete.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yep. But one thing, and I want to mention that he really discipline. I mean, this guy, it was insane, his discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I at this time I was also having my son, who's now 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a very, I want to call it an almost big transformation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I would go to the gym with him every morning at 4 a.m. Some days, if we had to, we'd go at 3:30,
Wow.
like consistently,
Yeah. Dedicated.
and I was I just went in on that discipline. Um, and I was, strict with whatever diet, we'll call it, I was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and he mentioned it to my sister once. He's like, man, if David ever leaves his job, like, because I love people, like I love talking
Mm-hmm.
to people. I'm good with helping people. And I never completely left until after he passed away, but I know he's with me now
Mm-hmm.
and, cheering me on. But he did teach me that discipline and what's required. And I was almost being groomed again to be able to leave a quote safe corporate job
Mm-hmm.
at that time. And
Mm-hmm.
then when he passed, it was there was a lot of reflection that happened because here's a guy who literally has everything on the surface, and
Mm-hmm.
at one point he had to buy a hangar to store his cars that he had.
Mm-hmm.
And when he passed away, like that was it, right? Like you
It was
leave
gone.
this
Yeah.
earth,
Mm-hmm.
and to be literally around it, like in his house, helping sort stuff out and helping and supporting my sister through this, you just you get that, I want to call it wake up call, whatever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is life, right?
Yeah.
Like all this guy, so disciplined, and
And how old was
I,
he when he passed?
he was 48, I
So
believe,
young. I mean, 48
very
is young.
young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Was he a man of faith, David?
kind of.
Kind of.
So at this time, also, so then we would go to. We knew there's a gentleman named Tim Story
Mm-hmm.
who I met so many different people with Sam.
Yeah.
Um, I met Grant Cardone. Like
He
he's
was
starting
connected.
podcasts with all these guys.
Yeah.
Very connected, very successful. And so people wanted to be around him and meet him and talk to him. And
Yeah.
um, I met a gentleman named Tim Story, and he's a pastor, and he has a Christian church that's not too far from my house.
Okay.
And we started going there. And if my nana knew, she would be rolling in her grave probably,
Yeah.
because she was very like, no, we're Catholic. Like, you don't you
Yeah.
dare go to.
There's no question. You are going to a Catholic.
Correct.
Yes.
But for some, we did. So we'd go with Sam, and we started going to Tim Story's church,
Okay.
which I started to just be a witness that for me, and I came back to Catholicism,
Mm-hmm.
stronger, but the Christian church almost like awakened the spirit of God,
Yeah.
because I think Catholicism and its traditions and everything are very beautiful, but there's not so much like God is here right now.
Right.
There is, but
Right.
it felt more
Right.
alive in the Christian church. You have music playing, you have like, you know, just the pastors almost like speaking a motivational speech
Mm-hmm.
every Sunday,
Mm-hmm. So is
right?
that the first time when you go to that church? Is that the first time that you really feel the presence of God in your life?
I start to see God more, and
Mm-hmm.
I did start to feel it more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, so that this was a little before Sam passed away. We would go to this church,
Mm-hmm.
as a family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he passes away, and that was just a wild time.
Yeah.
We were having my daughter. I was working on a huge um, apartment complex out in Ventura, right on the coast, and it was far. It was, I'd have to be out there 4 or 5 days a week. So I'd have to stay out there. We just had my daughter, and I was like, all right, this is the time I need to go. And I don't want to, what's the point, right? Like, I'm reflecting about life. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I just went through this like traumatic, the
Loss.
most
Yeah.
traumatic thing that's ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Um, and you start to, so everything kind of just happens at the right time, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so you start to question, like, what am I even doing? Like, missing my kids growing up. Like, this isn't what it's about.
Right.
So I got enough courage to leave the company and start working on my own development projects. which I did. And it is essentially what I do now. I also still consult for hotel developers. Um, but yeah, so I left, and another year or two worked on about a year and a half. Still didn't have that kind of fire for God. And again, I have like this entrepreneurial like ambition. Like I've always loved to learn, learning more, trying new things. I am in Arete. Tried 75 hard a couple times, and it was almost, I almost made it once, didn't try quite complete it. I would go on, a keto diet, or this or that, like
Yeah.
try
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
I was doing all the right stuff as far as like personal development,
You're
but
missing one thing.
I was missing one thing. So
You were
this
missing
one
one thing.
time,
This
so
one time.
I said, all right. And I don't know how or why, but I said, all right, God, help me get through this 75 hard. I'm going to start tomorrow. If you help me get through this, I will give you all the glory. Like I promise, I will give you all the glory. And little by little, somehow also the diet I chose was just eating God foods,
Okay.
right? Like
So things that are grown from the earth.
he made us, if you
Mm-hmm.
believe, he created this body, right? Then he made these foods that this body is supposed to eat for energy. Okay, period. That should be it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like perfect foods. So we should eat anything, not, oh, carbs are bad. Oh, this is bad. On that, like constant, right? It's all a business, like all of it.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, then let's find the next diet and this one and that. Like he made your body, then he created this fuel for your body. That's so that I didn't realize was so profound and so simple and so powerful. But it ended up being. So that was the diet I chose. If I didn't know what an ingredient was, I shouldn't eat it. So I started looking at every package, started looking at, like, if I can't pronounce what it is, then I shouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
we're not meant to process chemicals. Like,
no.
we're just not.
And in fact, most of the time we don't process them. They sit in our liver or sit in our other organs until,
because it's not built. We weren't built for it.
No.
So long, kind of cutting a little forward, I made it through 75 hard, and I ended up doing live hard that year. I completely changed the way that I eat, and I gave God all the glory. Like I really gave him all the glory. I kept my promise.
Yeah.
And I started being more vocal.
So as you go through that 75 hard, as someone who's been through it several times also, as you go through that 75 hard with God's hand, as you go through that, do you find yourself in places during it where you are on your knees with him over it?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. There were a few times when I'm like, I can't, and I'm like, okay, I'm giving this up to you. And there were a lot of things that happened during that whole time frame where I'm reading the right books. I'm reading Untethered Soul. I'm reading
great book,
like just incredible books that it's just breakthrough and complete transformation.
Yeah.
And I know 75 hard does that for a lot of people, but this was like 75 hard on steroids.
Yeah.
Because the piece that I was missing was putting spiritual growth and God first.
Yes. Yes. Oh,
and as soon as I did that,
yeah,
it was like a huge umbrella that kind of encompassed every other personal development aspect. And it requires work daily, right? Like you wake up and you have to get that perspective and really just having, a few other people very close to me pass away. Like like there's nothing else. Like, why are we wasting time? Why are most people at church old?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's because they realize like,
yes.
Like there's only one more place to go after this.
They have figured something out that the young people don't know yet.
Right? And it's like let's flip it. Like, let's live for heaven every day. And then everything else, our worries are just, when
Yeah.
you look back and kind of find that, chase that perspective every single morning,
Mm-hmm.
like there is no way to have a bad day. And it happens, and we have emotions, and we have the, but to fight to like zoom out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every single morning, as soon as we wake up, like you just fight for it.
Well,
So
what does your practice look like, David? Share with the listeners what your actual
so
practice
I
looks like
still
now.
wake up early.
Mm-hmm. What
About at
time?
4:30
4:30.
is when
Okay.
I've been waking up the past couple months.
Mm-hmm.
And alongside me is a book called Imitations of Christ.
Yeah. Yep. I read it because you
Um,
told me to.
yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. I mean, I can only read 1 or 2 pages every morning because it's so deep
Mm-hmm.
and requires a lot of reflection. And I sit in silence, for 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I read Imitations of Christ. I read Proverbs for the day.
Mm-hmm.
There's 31 chapters in Proverbs. And so it's a very easy to remember what day you're on if you happen to miss one. Um, and there's some wild wisdom in there. And some days I
Yeah.
don't feel like reading it. And a line that I've been reading it every day for like 2 years just pops out, and
I
it
love
like
that.
gives complete guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So I do that every morning, and then I go to the gym, and on my drive to the gym, I listen to the Hallow app,
Mm-hmm.
and I listen to usually today's daily reflection,
Mm-hmm.
is what it's called. And then I have a great workout, where, and I'd never ever listened to Christian music before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in this time, I also felt, and I don't know if it's just my perspective or me, but the whole world, there's a revival going on.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree.
I know I felt God lead me and work in me, and I feel it everywhere else too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, wow, he's working everywhere.
Oh
Where
yeah.
like this Christian music is, they have better beats and better rhythms sometimes now than
Yes.
like new
Yes.
music coming out. And then
Yes.
you have popular artists coming into Christian music, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So I usually warm up with like a 2 mile jog, listening to Chris, and it.
That's your warm up, a 2 mile
Oh
jog.
yeah, and when you connect, like, I've read invitation, like when you connect spiritual with your physical, and when everything's kind of flowing and you're eating right, like there's no flow that you can get than feeling the Holy Spirit. So through,
Mhm.
and again, there's a lot that's happened, but through 75, and when you're like tapped in spirit, sometimes I'll just cry. Like it's wild. And if you step back and realize, again, God made us, and he made the trees the way they are, that everything's so perfect,
Mhm.
right? Sometimes we try to force things when we just need to step back and like
Right.
let him create the orchestra, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And just appreciate it and have
yeah.
gratitude and be grateful.
And
Yes.
so, but it's fighting for that perspective every day, because I'm telling you, I'm clearly, I mean, I haven't done it every single day, but when I don't,
Mm-hmm.
you feel behind and you hear that. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
world, all the noise, all the loudness, all the chaotic craziness, like it's the devil in disguise, and it's trying to take you away from, feeling that flow and the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
Because once you do, and we can tap into starting to go into spiritual gifts, and that's a whole another podcast we could probably have.
Yeah, we can certainly do another podcast.
But it that's like peace when you know you're in your gifts
Mm-hmm.
and you're flowing, and you can't be stopped.
No.
Like, you cannot be stopped. Like,
No.
if you feel it, and nothing is going to stop you. The right people will come into your life. The wrong people will just get out of your life.
Yep. Yep.
And that is like ultimate flow. And so, and this is an important one, and why you stated God must stay.
Mm-hmm.
But during this whole 75 hard, and I don't know if it was maybe in phase one or when, but my wife, Kayla, she did it with me. It was like a week started a week after me. She's like, "Oh, go ahead and start, and if you make it past a week, I'll do it with you." That's how
Oh,
bad
that's
like I would start,
funny. You would start and
right?
stop. Yes.
Yes. So
Yes.
she's like, "Go
That's
ahead and
funny.
get it going, and if you make it to a certain point, I'll jump in."
Oh, that's funny.
So we both accomplished it, and we would take a lot of walks outside,
Mm-hmm.
which was great for our relationship and
Yep.
just finding what we're going after. And it was on one of those walks when, again, I'm on my own. And in real estate development, construction, there's so much you can do. It's like
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, so we want to do an apartment, small apartment complex in a different state. Do we want to do this? Do we want to subdivide land? Like, it goes on and on. So she pulled it out of me and she's like, okay, stop. If you could do anything, let's just, what would you do? I was like, well, we stayed at this house in Joshua Tree. It was 2 bedrooms. And we had said, oh, let's have one of these one day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, let's do one of those. And she's like, okay, what's the size of it? What's the bit?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, let's just do like a small one. Let's like get our first project that we're doing all by ourselves. Like, let's finish a project because there were a lot of things kind of moving, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, let's do that. All right. And I kid you not, 2 weeks later, this contact I had met reaches out to me and he's like, hey, I have this project. It's actually off market, but I think you should take a look at it. It's this guy that he was going to do the project, but he moved out of state. And so he's like, I'll send you the plans. He sends me the plans. It's 2 bedrooms in Yucca Valley, which I didn't know what it was.
Well, that was
but
obviously a gift from God, clearly.
It's right by Joshua Tree.
Mm-hmm.
The land is way more beautiful than anything in Joshua Tree. I mean, you've been there.
Yep.
And
Amazing.
it just presented itself to me. And at that point, I was like, well, do I know the numbers? Nope. Can I say no? Nope.
Nope. God
I'm
gave
like,
you
all
that.
right.
God gave you that and said, here you go, David. Figure it out.
Right. I'm like, all right, honey. We said we're going to do this. And it like presented. Okay, we'll do it.
Yeah.
Where are we going to get the money? Oh, don't worry. Let's not worry about that. And so we did it, and all on our own. I had never I worked for big hotel developers, so they had their finance department.
Right.
I've been involved with construction loans and all of this stuff and managed, approvals and permits. But we took it. I said, yes, we bought the land. We got the house plans approved. And I said, all right, God, help me find the right team. Everyone's saying, oh, it's hard to find a team out there to build this.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him to help me find the team. And every single person on that team believed in God.
Yeah.
Like we would have a conversation every time I'm out there.
Yeah.
Every single time.
Yeah.
I had a friend, and I actually listened to your podcast with him, but Chris Arsberger.
Yeah.
He gave me an Armor of God coin.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gave every new subcontractor, every time we'd meet and sign a contract, I'd give them one. And they were so thankful. And the project went perfect. We finished in 8 months. Like broke ground and finished in 8 months in California in a small town.
That's amazing. And the property is amazing.
And it helped that, I had the background in construction management, obviously.
Yeah.
Knew how to, build. But this project has been a godsend since the beginning, right? And throughout it, we hit some hurdles and I would get on my knees again and pray to God and just help us through this. And again, I promised, since I said I would give him the glory after 75 hard, I'm like, we'll use this house to do your will. And now we're top 5% on Airbnb, all 5 stars. And what is awesome is that since we built this home with the power of the Holy Spirit, with God, you have random guests. They'll text us or they'll say a message. They say, I feel God here.
Yeah.
And we just have small little, nuggets there, but it's incredible. And I'm sure you guys felt it. I mean, it's just so peaceful there.
Yeah, absolutely. The spirit there is amazing for sure.
And so through all this home became, for me, a bridge back to God. And it refined me like I couldn't imagine. If I thought I was, had transformation and growth before I said yes to this, I would have been wrong, because to get through some of the stuff and challenges we got through and figure out how to finance it all, we did it all ourselves.
Yeah.
We couldn't have made it without God. And through that whole process, I feel that he completely refined me. And
Hmm.
that's what I like to look at Kalmaste as, right? It's, for me, it's like a bridge back to God's design.
I love that. That's so good. That's
And
so
now it's beautiful because I can invite other people on to that journey and use the home
mm-hmm.
to like bring that peace and show them like what God can actually do.
Yeah. That's so
Right.
good. That's so good. And it's so we're nearing the end of our time, so we're going to segue to the questions. And I'm going to start with my second question because that right there is a good segue to that. So when once you finally started to feel the presence of God, once you finally started to have those moments and you could really understand the Holy Spirit and what that also felt like for you. Tell me what that was physically for you. What does that feel like when you're in full presence of God in your body?
So I mentioned before that, I would like to drink heavily on weekends
Mm-hmm.
and feel that like high and that. But through this whole process, also, I completely stopped drinking. Like, I don't even drink anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And God is the only one that could have done that. But it's a greater feeling than what you would think a buzz or a high or anything would be worth.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of times I like going on runs outside.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm running, I'll feel and listening to Christian music, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
feel the presence of God. And it's like a high. Like, it literally, when you're in flow, it, I can't even explain it. It's a buzz that you want back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a song that talks about it. Like, I need that feeling again, and I need it again. And so now, really, I'm addicted to getting that feeling.
Yeah, of
So it's like, okay,
course.
wait, I'm not feeling it right now. What am I doing different than I
Right.
was doing before?
Right. How am I not
Right?
just tapped in? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's what it feels like. It's just, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
Um, but it's an incredible feeling.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So you obviously did a lot of reading through 75 Hard and through your own personal development. So talk to us about something that you either read or absorbed that brought you closer to God, not the Bible.
It would have to be the untethered soul,
Okay.
and specifically being right. Like, when they ask you what you do, oh, I'm a real estate developer. I manage
Hmm.
construction. It's like, no, that's not you. What do you do? Oh, I'm a father. I have two kids. No, that's not who you are. I'm a brother. No, no, no. Who are you?
Yeah.
And an image, and I always go back to it when because emotions are emotions, right? There's no bad emotions. Like, we get them. Some days we
Hmm.
just feel a certain way. But one thing I really learned through that book is that we are the objective observer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I visualize myself on the throne,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm watching my body and the emotions just continually go in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm that observer, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not the person actually experiencing those emotions,
Yeah.
right? Like, we're grander and bigger than that. And that's who I am. And that's where, and we could call it a level of energy, but where God lives, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes when I'm feeling a certain way, I'm like, wait, that's not me. That's just emotions. Like,
Right. Right.
so just visually seeing that objective observer
Mm-hmm.
has been, I go back
Love
to that a
that.
lot.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great frame of reference for people who have trouble with just feeling all the things and then not handling it in a way that their true self would handle it if they were more calm. So I think that's beautiful. All right, a last question. If you were helping, okay, this is a good one. If you were helping yourself in those years where you were having too much fun, like if you go
Hmm.
back to that kid who joined the fraternity instead of going to baseball walk on tryouts, what would you
Hmm.
tell yourself now to get you through that time in your life?
That one's a tough one, because I think going through that time is part of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm not like
Mm-hmm.
mad at it. So Um, I would tell him that going out and partying with friends is not the only way to have get that same feeling, like to have
Mm-hmm.
that same fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's different ways, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, laughing or doing,
That's
something.
not the only way.
That's like not the only way. Like I
Yeah.
could have done more or different things
Yeah.
to find that joy.
Yeah. Well, David, what do you have for the audience that you'd like to offer them as kind of your parting words today?
Well, let me see. I would offer the insight to just stop overthinking. And just like the foods we spoke about,
Mm-hmm.
that's how everything is, right? Like it should be very simple. And we should go back to God's design,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the intent that he had when he made us.
Yeah.
Like it, like let's like, and it's funny because I talk a lot about slowing down and having and
Mm-hmm.
finding that calm. It's not being productive, because once you have that clarity and that calm, you're unstoppable when you know
Yeah.
what you're going after. And a lot of times they're like, well, I can't stop. And it happens to a lot of people in our red too. They're like, what do you mean calm and quiet? I'm not built that way.
Ah!
And it's like,
No,
no,
no. Yeah, we
it's like,
are.
I'm not saying that it's not calm on the couch, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm still getting
Yeah.
up at 4:30,
Yeah.
but I'm walking with a different peace and clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And that peace and joy and clarity, it's there all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's God's with us right now.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And it's so
So
true. It's so true. I often get questions of people who are struggling with things in their business or in their personal life, and they tend to not have the clarity and they're frantic about the answer, or they're unsure, or they don't know, or they're having some type of anxiety over it. And I can look at that now and say to myself, gosh, I used to walk that way. I used to walk
yeah.
that way. So part
Yeah.
of my journey now is helping people not walk like that anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and so I love that you said that, because it's so important to understand you don't have to live your life in a sense of anxiety and panic all the
Yeah,
time.
and give yourself grace too. And if you
Yeah.
if you're feeling a certain way, that's okay, right?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes I'll even get on my knee or go to church, and I'll, if there's a lot of heavy weight on me, like I'll grab it and I'll throw it
Hmm.
up to God, and I'll be like, you can take that, you can take that, you can take. And believe it or not, I'll feel lighter when I get out.
Yeah, that's
Like we
awesome.
don't have to have it figured out. We're not supposed to.
No, we don't have to figure all of it out.
Mm-mm.
So good. Well, David, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. We will definitely do an episode for spiritual gifts. I want to do that as a special thing here in the upcoming weeks. So thank you so much for being on today. Listeners, thank you all for listening to this episode of Evolve Through God. We'll catch you on the next one.